Hi, it's Sophie. Welcome back to English Zone. So, I finally did it. I joined a gym. I know, it doesn't sound like a big deal, right? But for me, it was huge. I'd been talking about exercising for, I don't know, maybe 3 years. I always said, next month I'll start. Then next month came, and I said it again. It was like a running joke, except I wasn't really running anywhere. One morning, I woke up, looked at myself in the mirror, and said to myself, "Okay, Sophie, today's the day. No more excuses." I didn't even have a clear reason. I just wanted to feel stronger, maybe sleep better, maybe stop losing my breath after one flight of stairs. So I took my phone, opened the gym's website, and clicked Join Now. Honestly, the moment I clicked it, I panicked. My brain went, wait, what have I done? I imagined myself surrounded by people who already looked like athletes, confident, glowing, lifting heavy things, while I tried to figure out how to turn on the treadmill. But deep down, I knew it was time. I was tired of only wanting to be healthier. I wanted to actually be healthier. Sometimes you reach that quiet moment when you realize no one's coming to push you. You have to push yourself. So, I packed my gym bag. Well, actually, I spent 30 minutes trying to find clothes that made me look like someone who belongs at the gym. Spoiler, there's no such outfit. Everyone feels weird their first day. As I zipped my bag, I smiled nervously and said out loud, "Okay, let's do this." And right there, standing in my messy room, I felt a tiny bit proud because for the first time, I wasn't just talking about it. I was doing it. I had no idea what would happen next, but that was kind of exciting too. So the next day, I walked to the gym. Well, I tried to walk confidently, but inside, my heart was doing jumping jacks already. You know that feeling when you walk into a place for the first time and everyone seems to know what they're doing, except you? That was me. The door opened, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. A mix of metal, air freshener, and sweat. Not terrible, but definitely not coffee shop vibes. The music was loud, like the gym wanted to make sure no one could hear their own thoughts. Behind the counter stood a super friendly guy with perfect hair and a big smile. He said, "Hi, welcome. First time here?" I wanted to say something cool like, "Yeah, I've been meaning to start my fitness journey." But instead, I just said, yes. He gave me a form, a pen, and said, "Take your time." I filled it out slowly, pretending to read carefully. Honestly, I was just giving myself time to breathe. Then he said, "Let me show you around." Great, a tour. My first thought was, please don't make me touch any equipment yet. He walked me through the gym, rows of treadmills, people lifting weights, someone doing push-ups like it was nothing. Everyone looked serious, focused, strong. Meanwhile, I was trying to act natural, like, Yes, I totally know what this machine does, even though I had no idea. The trainer pointed at everything, explaining how it works, and I just nodded politely. I probably looked like I understood, but in my head I was thinking, okay, that one looks dangerous. Never go near it. By the end of the tour, he smiled and said, "You'll love it here. Everyone starts somewhere." And for the first time, I believed him a little. Maybe this wasn't as scary as I thought. As I left the gym that day, holding my shiny new membership card, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. My brain whispered, "What if you never come back?" But another voice, quieter, stronger, said, "What if you do?" A few days later, I went back to the gym for my first real workout. They told me I'd have a short session with a personal trainer, to show me how to use the machines safely. I thought, perfect. Someone will help me survive this. When I arrived, a super energetic man walked over and said, "Hi, I'm Mark, your trainer." He was smiling like he had 3 cups of coffee before 8 a.m. I smiled back, trying to match his energy, but inside, I was thinking, please slow down, I'm still half asleep. He asked about my goals, and I said something vague like, I just want to be healthy. He nodded seriously, like I'd just said something very deep. Then he started explaining words I'd never heard before: reps, sets, core, warm-up, cool-down. It felt like I was learning a new language inside a different language. Mark showed me how to stretch first. Easy enough, right? But when I bent down to touch my toes, I realized I can't touch my toes. Not even close. He said, "Don't worry, we'll work on that," and smiled again. I had a feeling he said that to everyone. Next, he took me to a machine that looked like a spaceship. He said, "We'll start with this, leg press." He adjusted the seat, showed me how to push, and then said, "Okay, your turn." I pushed once, it moved, I was proud. Then he added more weight. My legs screamed, but my mouth said, "Yeah, that's fine." We went through a few more machines, and I started to notice something. Everyone in the gym was focused on themselves. No one cared if I looked awkward or didn't know what I was doing. That was kind of freeing. At the end, Mark said, "Good job, Sophie. You did great for your first day." I was sweating, tired, and possibly dying inside, but hearing that made me smile. Maybe I could actually do this. As I left, I thought, okay, maybe tomorrow I'll try coming back. I didn't promise. I just said maybe, and that felt like progress. Before my next workout, I decided to go early, to look calm and prepared. I wanted to give off that "I totally know what I'm doing" kind of energy. Spoiler, it didn't work. When I walked into the changing room, the first thing I noticed was the sound of lockers opening and hair dryers buzzing. Everyone seemed busy, confident, like this was their second home. Meanwhile, I stood there holding my gym bag, trying to remember which locker number the trainer told me to use. I picked one, opened it, and immediately dropped my water bottle. It rolled away like it was trying to escape. I chased it, pretending everything was fine. Inside, I was dying a little. Then I realized I'd forgotten my towel. Great. My first official gym mistake of the day. Next, I tried to change quickly, but why do gym clothes always feel tighter in public? I felt like I was fighting with my leggings while trying not to fall over. The woman next to me was casually tying her shoelaces like a fitness goddess. I smiled at her awkwardly, and she smiled back. That small human moment made me relax. When I finally finished changing, I couldn't remember if I'd locked my locker. I checked it twice. Okay, maybe 3 times. Then, as I turned around to leave, someone walked in with the same gym bag as mine. For half a second, I thought she took my stuff. She didn't, of course, but my heart still jumped. By the time I got to the treadmill, I was already sweating, and not from exercise. But you know what? That's okay. Everyone has their first day clumsy moments. The truth is, nobody's watching as closely as you think. They're all busy trying to survive their own workouts. So I took a deep breath, smiled at my reflection, and said quietly, "All right, Sophie, let's do this again." So there I was, finally standing in front of the treadmill. It looked harmless. Just a moving belt with some buttons, right? How hard could it be? I stepped on, pressed the start button, and began to walk slowly. Okay, good start. I was doing it. I was a gym person now. But then, curiosity happened. I saw all these buttons: speed, incline, programs, and of course, I wanted to try everything. I pressed one that said Quick Start, which should have been called Quick Panic because suddenly the treadmill decided I was an athlete. It sped up like it had something to prove. At first, I tried to play it cool, pretending I totally meant to run that fast. But inside, I was thinking, oh no, this is it. This is how I die at the gym on my second visit. My arms started flapping like I was trying to fly. My hair got in my face. I couldn't even find the stop button because it was moving away from me. Finally, I managed to grab the safety clip and the treadmill stopped with a loud beep. The guy on the treadmill next to me looked over, smiled kindly, and said, "First week?" I laughed, still gasping for air, and said, "Is it that obvious?" He nodded and said, "You'll get used to it." That small moment saved me. His kindness made me feel less embarrassed. Everyone has their beginner story, and apparently this was mine. I walked slowly for a few more minutes, this time keeping my hands far, far away from the buttons. When I stepped off, the floor felt like it was still moving. I laughed to myself. It was a mess, but at least it was my mess. And as I wiped the sweat from my face, I realized something. Yes, I looked ridiculous, but I was still there. I didn't give up. And maybe that was the real win for today. After surviving the treadmill, I decided to explore the weight area. I'd seen people lifting dumbbells before. They always looked so strong and confident, like they knew exactly what every muscle in their body was doing. I wanted to look like that too, but I didn't. The moment I walked in, I could hear the sound of heavy metal weights clanking and people breathing like dragons. Everyone was focused, serious, and clearly in their zone. I picked up the smallest dumbbells I could find, maybe 2 kilograms each, and tried to act like I belonged there. I stood in front of the mirror, watching myself, and thought, "Okay, Sophie, look strong." Then I started lifting, slowly, carefully, pretending I knew what I was doing. After about 10 seconds, I realized I was making the weirdest face. My reflection looked like someone trying to solve a math problem, not lift weights. A guy next to me was lifting something that looked heavier than my entire body. He made it look effortless. I tried to copy his posture, but immediately lost balance. I almost dropped one dumbbell on my foot. Smooth, Sophie. Really smooth. Then something funny happened. An older woman came next to me and smiled and said, "Don't worry, I was like you once." She showed me a simple move with the weights, something easy I could follow. I tried it, and for the first time, it felt right. My arms weren't perfect, but they were working. We ended up laughing together about how scary the gym feels when you're new. She said, "The only person you need to beat here is the version of you who didn't show up." I liked that. It stuck with me. When I left the weight area, I didn't feel like a bodybuilder, but I felt proud. My arms were shaking, but so what? I'd faced my fear of looking silly, and that made me stronger in a different way. After a few days, I noticed a big, colorful poster near the gym entrance. It said, "Zumba class. Everyone welcome." The word everyone gave me hope. I thought, "Okay, Sophie, this sounds fun. You like music, you can move, sort of." So I signed up. When I entered the class, the room was full of people, mostly women in bright clothes, laughing and chatting like they already knew each other. The instructor stood in front, smiling with that ready-to-sweat energy. I stood in the back, trying to look invisible. The music started, loud, fast, full of rhythm, and everyone began to move in perfect sync. Everyone, except me. My feet were going left when they went right. My arms were always half a second late, and I'm pretty sure I invented a few moves no one had ever seen before. But the thing is, I couldn't stop laughing. It was chaos, but it was happy chaos. At one point, the instructor shouted, "Smile! You're doing amazing!" I wasn't sure if she meant me, but I smiled anyway. There was something so freeing about dancing terribly in a room full of strangers who didn't care. Nobody was judging. Everyone was just there to have fun. After a few songs, I was sweating, my hair was everywhere, and my legs felt like jelly. But I was happy. The kind of happy that comes from not taking yourself too seriously. When the class ended, the woman next to me said, "You did great for your first time." I laughed and said, "Thanks. I think I invented a new style." She laughed too and said, "That's the spirit." Walking out of the studio, I realized something. Sometimes the best way to feel good is to stop trying to look good. The next morning, I woke up and immediately realized something was wrong. Or maybe too right. I tried to move my legs. Nope. My arms? Also nope. Every muscle in my body was screaming, "Why did you do this to us, Sophie?" Getting out of bed felt like an Olympic event. I tried to stand, and my legs were like, "We quit." I laughed out loud because it was ridiculous. I hadn't run a marathon. I'd just danced for an hour and lifted some baby weights. Yet here I was, walking around my apartment like a robot with low batteries. Even brushing my teeth was a challenge. I looked in the mirror, holding my toothbrush slowly, and said, "Well, this is it. I live here now." Every time I sat down, I made a little noise, a tiny ouch, that turned into my new language for the day. But as the pain continued, I realized something. It wasn't just pain, it was proof. Proof that I had actually done something. Proof that my body was waking up after years of excuses. And that made me smile, even when it hurt to move my face. At work, my friends noticed me walking funny. One of them asked, "Jim?" I just nodded. They laughed and said, "Welcome to the club." I finally understood what that meant. Everyone who starts goes through this stage. The sore muscles, the slow steps, the secret pride. By the end of the day, I wasn't angry at the pain anymore. In a weird way, I liked it. It reminded me that I was changing, little by little. That night, as I crawled into bed, I whispered, "Good job, body. You survived." And for the first time, I didn't just feel tired. I felt proud. 2 days later, I finally decided to go back to the gym. My legs still felt a little stiff, but I told myself, if you wait until you feel ready, you'll never go. So I grabbed my bag, smiled at my reflection, and said, "Round 2, let's go." Walking into the gym this time felt different. I wasn't as nervous as before. The smell of sweat and cleaning spray was still there. The music was still loud, but something had changed. Me. I knew where to put my bag, how to use the locker, and most importantly, how not to fall off a treadmill. That was progress. Mark, my trainer, spotted me and said, "Hey, Sophie, you came back," like it was the most surprising thing ever. I laughed and said, "Yeah, I survived my first week." He gave me a thumbs up and said, "That's how it starts." I started with some light stretching, then a slow walk on the treadmill, this time at a safe, human speed. As I moved, I looked around and noticed something I hadn't seen before. Everyone there had their own little world. their music, their focus, their pace. No one was perfect. Some looked tired. Some took long breaks. Some smiled at themselves in the mirror. It wasn't a competition. After my short workout, I sat on the mat, breathing deeply. My body still ached a bit, but it felt alive. For the first time, the gym didn't feel like a scary place full of strangers. It felt like a space where people were simply trying, just like me. As I left, I passed the same woman from the weight area. She waved and said, "Back again?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, I think I'm starting to like it here." And I really meant it. A few weeks later, something amazing happened. I made my first gym friend. I didn't plan to, it just kind of happened. Her name was Emma, and like me, she was a beginner. We met near the stretching area. I was trying to copy a move I'd seen someone do, and it looked easy until I almost fell over. Emma laughed softly and said, "That's me every day." I laughed too and said, "Good, I'm not alone." And just like that, we started talking. She told me she joined the gym for the same reason I did, to feel stronger and less tired all the time. We joked about how we both check the clock every 5 minutes during cardio, hoping it's almost over. She said, if 5 minutes at the gym felt as long as 5 minutes on Instagram, we'd all be super fit. I laughed so hard, I almost dropped my water bottle. From that day, we started seeing each other often. Sometimes we worked out together, sometimes we just waved from across the room. It felt nice having someone who understood the awkward, funny parts of being new. We even celebrated small wins, like when I managed to do 10 push-ups without collapsing, or when she finally learned how to use the rowing machine without looking like she was fighting it. One morning, she didn't show up, and I realized how much I looked forward to seeing her. It wasn't just about exercise anymore. It was about connection. Having someone to smile at, to say, "We're doing it," even when we both felt half dead, made everything lighter. The gym didn't feel so big anymore. It wasn't just a room full of strangers. It was a place where people, like me and Emma, were learning not just to move our bodies, but to keep showing up. And maybe that's the hardest and most beautiful part of all. A few weeks turned into a month, and I started to notice small changes. Not huge movie-style transformations, but quiet, real ones. My jeans fit a little better, my back didn't hurt as much, and walking up the stairs didn't feel like climbing a mountain anymore. But the biggest change wasn't in my body. It was in my mind. I used to think going to the gym was a kind of punishment, something I had to do to fix myself. But now, it started to feel different. It felt like a way to take care of myself. Each time I showed up, it was like saying, "Hey, Sophie, I care about you." I wasn't scared of the machines anymore. I didn't care if I looked silly. I didn't compare myself to others because I finally understood. Everyone's here for their own reason. some people want strength, some want peace, and some just want an hour away from their busy lives. And all of that is okay. Even the soreness that used to make me whine became something I liked. It reminded me that I was growing stronger, even when I didn't see it right away. One morning, while I was finishing my workout, Mark, my trainer, walked by and said, "You've come a long way, Sophie." I smiled and said, "I know, right? I can actually touch my toes now." We both laughed, but inside, I felt something deeper. Pride. It wasn't the kind of pride that shouts. It was soft, quiet, like a warm light inside me. I wasn't trying to become perfect anymore. I was just trying to become consistent, and that felt even better. As I left the gym that day, I realized this place wasn't scary anymore. It wasn't about starting over. It was about continuing, one small, imperfect day at a time. It's funny how something that once scared me so much has now become part of my routine. My first day at the gym feels like a long time ago. That nervous girl, afraid of the machines, afraid of being judged, I still remember her clearly. She had no idea that one small decision would change so many things. Now, when I walk into the gym, I don't feel nervous. I feel calm. It's not about proving anything or being perfect. It's about showing up, even when I don't feel like it. Every visit is a quiet reminder that I can keep promises to myself. And that's something I never want to lose. Of course, I still have clumsy moments. I still drop things. I still get tired halfway through a workout. But now I laugh instead of getting embarrassed. Because that's the thing. When you start to accept yourself, even the messy parts become part of your story. The gym taught me more than just how to exercise. It taught me patience. It taught me that change doesn't have to be big or fast. It just has to be honest. Some days you move forward, some days you rest. But as long as you keep going, you're doing great. If I could talk to the Sophie from that first day, I'd tell her, "Hey, don't worry so much. You're going to be okay. You're stronger than you think." And to you, if you're starting something new, whether it's the gym, English, or anything that feels hard, just begin. You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up. Thank you for listening to my story. If it made you smile or reminded you of your own journey, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment, give this episode a like, or follow English Zone for more stories like this. Until next time, take care, keep going, and remember, every small step still counts.